Here with Jordan Shusterman, Jake Mintz. It doesn't seem like 3 years we've been doing this, but it's awesome to be back. This means the college season's right around the corner, and it gets everybody's juices going.
It is. We're very happy to be back with you, and it's right. This invite is like, oh, right, the season really is here. I always tell my friends, like, in December, the season seems so far away in both directions, right? It seems like I barely remember what happened, and also the season. But then as soon as it's January, it's like, oh, it's here, it's here.
Forget that Pennsylvania groundhog, Jordan. This is when spring begins.
Exactly, it's so true.
Well, and Jake, I saw you in Cedar Rapids last year. That was like a very happy happenstance thing to see you roll in on no sleep into Cedar Rapids for the Division III World Series. It was awesome.
It was great. It was my first time actually being at the World Series, which was cool. And, I went because my alma mater, Washington University, was participating. And Cedar Rapids is not the easiest place to get to by plane. So I hopped in my car and I drove 16 hours from New York City in one day and stayed for a week of baseball and drove home. And no regrets.
Yeah, I flew from Tulsa to Cedar Rapids. I've made that journey many a time just with coaching at Iowa, so I'm used to flying into Cedar Rapids, which is actually a pretty decent airport.
Yes.
But yeah, not easy to get to. There's no good ways to drive or fly into that area. Maybe Quad Cities International is another option to fly in and then drive over, because it's really not a bad drive from Quad Cities to Cedar Rapids.
Well, all due respect to Cedar Rapids, and maybe I will make it out there in the next couple of years. But I personally am excited for it to move to Cleveland. I know that the D3 World Series is moving to Lake County. I don't know if it's next year or the year after, but that will be much more accessible for everybody, I would imagine.
Yeah, and we talked about that too.
Cool.
It's still at a time where school's going there. Could you bus some kids over and do like a school day there? I think there's a way to maybe create some more atmosphere in that ballpark, because it is a great ballpark. They've had a great product there forever in the minor leagues. But is that something with school still going on? Could you get some kids over? Because that's been one of the best games I've ever coached in. We played at Creighton, TD Ameritrade, and they had a school day, and there was 18,000 kids there. So it was like the highest attended Division I game that year with all the kids there, and the chatter is amazing. I don't know if you guys have ever been to a minor league game where they do the school days. It's crazy.
Oh
the amount of
yes,
chatter.
yes. We've been to right an 11 a.m. camp day, so it's sort of similar. Not quite school day.
That was it's a good point. That was my biggest beef, is maybe the wrong word, but my biggest critique of the Iowa atmosphere, right, is that the operation side of things, in terms of the product on the field and the playing surface itself and the stadium, were incredible, were top notch. The atmosphere was not. It was low notch. And I think a big part of that is that the city either hasn't had the time, or it hasn't been publicized enough in town. So you didn't have really that many locals coming in and watching the game. Whereas people that I've heard from who played and coached in Appleton, they said that atmosphere was very present there. So hoping that Iowa can beef that up a little bit. I think getting the local elementary schools involved like they did in Appleton would be great. But I'm just hoping for, we want the atmosphere to feel different and unique and special for the people at the World Series when they get to play for the whole thing.
Yeah, because the product on the field was tremendous, and just fortunate I get to see all the championships now and go around, and there's really not a lot of difference between the top and the bottom now, and what people would call the bottom. It's not. Like, there's great baseball, and that field was really good, and it looks like a lot of those same teams are in the top 25 right now, and I'll be interested to see if Salisbury can do it. I really like their coaching staff. I like the way that they go about things. All of those guys over there do a good job, but you look at Cortland, Cortland for me is a sneaky program out there that just seems like they are there every year. Coach Brown does a phenomenal job. But you can look at that top 25 and you look at a lot of the same teams are in there. But what about WashU, Jake? What do you got?
I'm optimistic. It's tough. They lost, I think, 10 or 11 seniors, and they lost their starting All-American shortstop, Caleb Durbin, who was drafted in the 16th round, I believe, and signed by the Braves. And so there's a lot to bring back. But, Coach Blue knows how to recruit. It's not like he didn't see this coming. They'll be fine. I personally think 9 is a little bit high. I think Jordan and I had them a little bit lower on our top 25. But they'll be fine no matter what. I think let's start off. I mean, Jordan and I agree. Salisbury won the national championship last year, and they're our number one team in the country.
Yeah, and I think that's not always the case. I know it's easy to. I think it's preseason polls are challenging for a lot of reasons at any level, and obviously I can understand the inclination to just put the national champion at number one. I think this might be the year we agree with it the most. I know in years past, we've seen some national champions just automatically put at number one, even though they lose like all of their best players. And it's like, well, that's not accurate. Like that it's not the same team. In this case, they have so many guys back besides our hero, Justin Meekins, who of course, finally moving on, but they still have so many dudes back. And it is interesting when you look at the 8 World Series teams from last year. Wash U of the 8 is definitely the one with the least coming back. I mean, them and Hopkins, and then obviously St. Thomas has moved on out of D3. But look at those other teams. Adrian's good. They're losing a lot of pitchers, but they've got a good amount coming back. Hopkins, certainly. Wheaton, Mass, I think we're really excited about. They have a ton of guys back. And then, Salisbury and Cortland are loaded again, I think deserve to be up in the top 5.
And hopefully we're on the end of the Omicron here, because I think Johns Hopkins was like the story of the year last year. They had played like 10 games going into the regionals and then made it. And hopefully we don't have as much of that this year, where everybody gets a full slate of games and where you get a little bit more of a history on teams where they get a chance to play more games.
Yeah,
100%.
100%. Yeah. I think Hopkins is also a really interesting example of how the transfer market has altered things in the D3 landscape, where, some schools do not have a 5th-year program that they can offer students.
A lot of schools.
A lot of schools.
A lot of
right?
D3 schools, right?
Where Jordan went College of Worcester, there is no grad program, right? So once you do your 4 years, there's no ability to keep kids there after the 4 years. And Worcester,
the Ivy Leagues go into that too.
Exactly. So there's a couple things, right? So an example, the Worcester's ace the last couple of years, a guy named Evan Faxon, transferred to Case because Worcester couldn't keep him, right? Like too many years. That was it. And then Hopkins is an interesting example of they're poaching kids from the Ivy Leagues.
Yeah.
So
they had Daidai. I mean, Daidai Otaka was their shortstop last year. Was at Yale. And by the way, is coach with the Houston Astros now. He's got a job with the Astros.
Yep. And so the way that the 5th and even at times 6th years are being used and guys are able to move around is going to really impact things this year and in the next couple of years.
Yeah, and I would just add to the point you just made about scheduling. Like that's what we're most excited to have back this year is normal schedules, not just full 30, 40 game schedules, but non-conference. Right? I mean, we had so many conferences last year that the Hopkins one was a bit extreme because they only played 14 games or whatever. But like there were even conferences that did play 30, 40 that were only in conference, and to see those Florida trips are huge. Like the Florida trips are a huge part of how you determine who the best teams in the country are, and we just had none of that last year. And so that's what I'm most looking forward to, is seeing those cross conference competitions, seeing those full schedules, seeing those midweeks between conferences like the NCAA and the OAC. Like that is really where you get prepared for the postseason, both for the teams and for the people that are analyzing it. Because if we're only seeing teams in conference, that's why so many teams caught us by surprise once we got to the regionals last year, because we had no idea what they were tested against. And that made for some good stories and also made for some crazy upsets, and all of it's fun in the end. But I'm just excited to have a lot more like real exciting top-notch competition early on in the season.
Yeah, and it seems like the West Coast is full go now too, where that really hurt all levels of college baseball last year with the West Coast, because they really got hampered with what they were able to do and not able to do the travel piece. Chapman, that's going to be an intriguing storyline with Chapman now, getting them back in things, just see how that goes out there. And you guys did a West Coast preview. We're getting ready to start a West Coast preview because they're getting ready to start playing. So, them in Division II don't have a common starting date. So those teams out there in warmer climates can start a little bit earlier.
100%.
I was just gonna say too, like, the West. I mean, we got so used to the West, running things in the World Series, right, with the teams from Texas and of course Chapman and Kalu, and then last year to only have, I know we had Pacific also, and a couple of Texas teams, but it didn't seem like the same level of and a lot of that is not their fault, right? They just didn't get to play quite as much. But a team like Pacific, I think, is going to be a really interesting case this year because they really surprised and had a really strong run last postseason. Now, even before COVID days, the NWC is always a bit of a black box for us because they are so separate and generally do play mostly just conference games. But there's some great baseball being played up there, and we're excited to. And they're also the ones starting first, so we've been digging into those teams a little bit more in the recent weeks, and we're excited for them to get started and kind of lock in on them before the rest of the country gets going.
Hey, Justin Meekins, can we get a post grad picture of him to see if he's cut his hair?
That's a great question. We should actually request that.
Yes.
We will reach out because I don't know what Justin's doing, but I mean, I would hope he could get one more post-grad picture.
Just because you graduate doesn't mean you can't take a roster photo.
I know, especially, I don't know if he's coaching or what his deal is, but I have a feeling he will be making an appearance at some point during the year, whether it's on our podcast or at a Salisbury game or something.
And I just saw you guys tweeted out Ryan Boyer was with the Milwaukee Milkmen, just signed with the Blue Jays. And again, just highlights the good baseball that is across all levels of college.
Oh yeah, and we've seen more and more guys get pro looks. A lot of the cool thing last year was seeing a lot of guys transfer to D1s, right, and get picked. Mason Miller is another one who came from another Pitt area school, from Waynesburg, and then he ended up at Gardner Webb, and then now he's with the A's. Like, we know, and let alone the Tommy Parsons of the world and guys like that who sign as undrafted free agents, and it's great, and it's just so much fun to follow these guys, and we're just it's cool because it's a small world, and that's why we love it.
In the past, we think the biggest difference between Division I and Division III, it usually is about physicality, right? Just how big and how strong and how fast players are, and then on the mound, how hard are they throwing? And I think with the progression that the baseball community has made in terms of development, specifically in terms of velocity development, has made it easier for a kid at a D3 school over the summer or within the program to gain velo in a way that I don't think we were able to see 10, even 5 years ago. And I think what'll happen is we're going to have more pop-up D3 arms throwing 91, 95, and getting looks in the pros.
And that's a good example of what independent baseball is going to turn into now. You had the most amount of players sign out of indie ball back into organizational baseball because the lack of the minor league teams. You're going to see it more and more now. Every stadium has TrackMan. So the reports are going to get sent out to everybody. So anybody that's dogging Indy, and I'm an Indy alum, so I'm high on indie ball. For anybody that dogs indie ball, it is a legitimate chance to get an opportunity because they're going to get more reps. The TrackMan data is out there, so you're going to see more and more. It hurts the indie ball teams because they're scrambling to get players in the middle of the year, but you're going to see it more and more now.
Yeah, and no, I think what Jake said is so true, just from the development standpoint, from the coaching, especially some of these programs do have, I mean, not all of them, but there are some D3 programs that do have similar crazy resources to have the Rapsodo, to have that development, to have just a bunch of coaches that are really freaking good at what they do. And that's and particularly on the pitching side. And I think one of the big questions in just baseball in general is how do hitters kind of combat that over the next decade, whether they change the rules and whatever in MLB and stuff, we'll see. But I think that's going to be the most fascinating thing and there are great hitting coaches too that are coming from all levels. I mean, there are hitting coaches that are coming from random levels of college baseball that are getting hired as major league hitting coaches. It's pretty amazing. Yeah. And so I think that you'll see that too. There'll obviously always be that.
Hey, how did the experiment, and this is right in our backyard with the Atlantic League, because High Point is in that league with moving the mound back. Did you guys get a whiff of how that worked out for them? I know there was some belly aching, but moving the mound back to me seemed kind of extreme, but
I think pitchers hated it. If you put a pebble in a pitcher's foot, they're going to act like the world's end. We are creatures of habit. Yeah. And anything that is altered in your environment is going to feel incredibly different, especially when, so much of succeeding in any sport is muscle memory and second nature, yes. Right? And if you're training one thing for your entire life and then you move it back a foot, it's going to completely
and right during the year too. It wasn't like it was give them some time in spring training to figure it out and get used to it. It was like, okay, here you go. And same thing with the robo umpires. I mean, they're going to go AAA with it. So let's see how that shakes out also.
Well, that's coming. So I think they already decided they're not messing with the mound. at least in that league again. But yeah, I mean the robo-umps, that's a whole other conversation.
We don't have enough time today for my.
Yeah, I was gonna
Sorry,
say,
I know the catching guys listening in right now are going to get fired up because that's where we're seeing the community, and they're right. I mean, it's going to change that position for the worse. I just love that position, and when you take that skill piece out of it for those guys and eliminate, and everybody has their rights and wrongs on that, I just think you take the skill piece out of that position, which is what that position has been forever.
Yeah. I do think D3 is an interesting test case for this because we will never see robo-umps at the D3 level. Okay, we may see it
maybe in
SEC
50 years
or the top of D1,
right.
but we won't, at least in the foreseeable future, see it here. And so coaches are always going to coach their players to win baseball games, especially in D3, right? Pro development is part of it, but it's never going to be the priority at this level. And I don't think it should be, personally. And that means that coaches are always going to try and get their catchers to be good framers at this level, whether or not there is robo-umps at the big league level. And I like that. I think that I think you guys do a lot of work to break this down, but there was a perception in American society that MLB is the be all and the end all and the goal and the shining star. And if you don't make it, it was all a failure. And that's not true, right? Yep. And college athletics and indie ball and, foreign leagues are part of that baseball story as well. And so I think that even if there are robo-umps instituted, it will not ruin the other things about baseball, the other spaces in baseball that we really love.
Anybody on the outside looking in that maybe has a shot to get into Cedar Rapids this year?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
so
I think we should also say, Jordan, the changes in how the postseason is going to look this year. So last year it was a reduced field because of COVID. There were only 6 at-large bids given out, which is absurd. Right, 6 is nuts. How few teams that is, right?
And 6, especially, by the way, I know at D1 there's like 30, right? I mean, it's a crazy amount. But in D3, normally it's between 15 and 20.
There are 6 ACC teams, right?
right. Like so 6 was ridiculous, and there were very good teams left out of the field last year. So this year we understand we're back to up to 60. So we had 58 in 2019. I think we're up to 60 this year. Which means it'll be, I think, 18 or 19 at-large bids, which is fantastic. And then the most exciting thing is something also we brought in 2019 for the first time in D3 is super regionals. That was something that we, and I think that's the best. Not only is it just
the best format, it really
is.
It's
just it's a fun format, but it makes you feel like you're playing the highest level of college baseball, right? In that sense,
they play that the whole year. That's always been the argument, and hopefully in D1 it goes to the first round, goes to 2 out of 3 because they play that the entire year. Mm-hmm. And I understand with conference tournaments you may have to work it a little bit different, but they are set up to play 2 out of 3 the entire year. So give them that opportunity to do that, and you get more host teams. There's a lot of benefits to doing it that way. You get more host teams, you get more teams on campus. It's actually cheaper for the NCAA because they don't have to pay for as many teams to travel. Yep. So you get a lot of interest in that best 2 out of 3. And you might have some teams that sneak through because it seems like everybody now has at least 2 good arms, where you may actually see more upsets by doing 2 out of 3 the whole time.
Because I think that what happens in an 8-team regional is it tests parts of your roster that haven't been tested the whole year, right? If it's a 4-team regional, you're going to really only need to use your best 7 arms, which is how a team operates during the season. Whereas in an 8-team regional, you're going to have to use 12 guys. And you see teams just run out of arms. And
it's a war in a very unpleasant, it creates some legendary stories and performances, but it becomes kind of not a farce. That's too far, but it is very.
The quality of baseball goes down immensely.
It's very far removed from the baseball that we're saying. So now, and I agree with you that D1 should move to add an extra weekend doing best of 3. But again, we love the D3 format now with the 4-team regionals and then going to supers. I love that. To your point, way more hosts, which is great.
If you're out there listening to this and you're like, 60 teams. How does that work?
How does that work?
That's a good question. Maybe one day we'll get to 64, but not yet.
Yes, we're slowly marching.
It's a participation thing. For people that don't know how it's set up through the NCAA, it's through how many people are participating,
Right.
and it is a Title IX issue. So that's why you see some funky things out there with who gets in, because it is a participation thing.
Yes, and the 60 ends up being, I guess this year, right?
It'll be 14. It'll be
14
four-team
four-teamers and then two two-teamers that play a best of 5.
Yeah.
Which we had in 19, we had 3, right? Because it was 58 teams. And it's very goofy that they have to play best of 5. So you still have to win 3 games, whatever. And this is random. And a lot of it is just geographical. So, like, again, it's weird. It's D3. It's fine. It's not as perfectly fair as the perfect 64 team viewer bracket, but that's fine. That's fine. In general, I think we'll get 64 win day, and that'll be good. But to answer your question, we should actually talk about some teams here, because we're excited about the format. But looking at the preseason top 25, of course, we vote on this, and we're there's some of this we agree with, some of it not. Just looking in the top 25.
Can I just say, Jordan?
Yeah.
The one WashU first place vote
was
not me. I'm going to be very clear about that.
Yes.
Salisbury got 24 first place votes and WashU got 1. That was not me. I disagree with it. Okay. Yes. I had WashU in the 20s. Yes. Just want to be very clear, very transparent.
No, it's yes, we are.
It does look fishy.
Better than the Hall of Fame voters for sure.
It does look a little sketchy, but no, JJ, I can confirm Jake did not vote for WashU there. But looking at kind of the back half, I mean, in the top 10, very excited about Eastern Connecticut.
Yes.
What a season last year, and they have so many of their guys back. I think they are really going to be able to challenge Southern Maine again. That the LEC battle is fantastic. I know UMass Boston's normally in that mix. They've kind of fallen off recently, but I'm sure they will also be in that mix. Have to mention Lynchburg. Yes. Lynchburg is a team that has really come on with some all region caliber talent in a loaded conference, right? The ODAC is as competitive as it can be, but they are not a team that has won a lot recently, but they had a great run last year, and they're just on the outside right now in the 25. But we think that they're right there. They're absolutely a top 25 team, maybe top 20, top 15. So that's definitely a team.
UT Dallas is another team I'm really high on. They bring everyone back, right? Teams where you can bring experienced players back. They have a couple grad student players. They have a couple transfers. Their coach, Shane Shoemake, has been there forever. Dad of Braden Shoemake, who was drafted by the Braves, played at Texas A&M, I believe. This is a team with, I think they could have the best offense in the country. That conference in Texas tends to be very offensive. And with the new format, the 4-team regional, I'm worried about that team's pitching depth, but I think it might not matter if that's the new format. Other teams in the receiving votes category that jump out to us, Jordan, want to give a shout out to Swarthmore, who has 1 vote on here. And they didn't play in 2021. They didn't play in 2020. They played in 2019 and just missed the cut, and they made the World Series in 2018. This is a program on the rise. Their games against Johns Hopkins in the Centennial are going to be wars. Keep an eye on SWAT.
Yes, very excited about SWAT. Other teams in that mix, Salve is definitely a program that has a lot of their top talent back. Very excited. LaGrange is a team that we're really excited to see if they can finally get over the hump. I know they've competed in the South region a lot. Moving back into the top 25, I think we have to mention North Central. They were the team, probably the most shocking exclusion last year.
Sorry, Coach Mathy.
That was the most stunning. Like, I can't believe they're not in now. Again, 6 teams, someone was going to get screwed. So it wasn't that story, but they have a lot.
Well, and that's how the conference tournament shook out for them too. They played great, and they fought their way in. Got beat in the championship game, and probably deserved to get an at-large bid. And that's not just because I know Coach Mathy forever, but they probably deserve to get in.
Totally. So they're obviously a perennial contender, but we think they are in a very strong position to be back at the top of their region again. Shenandoah has a ton of guys.
One thing about North Central, All-American catcher Rob Marinak is back. And then their X factor, the Cardinals, is Charlie Clem, who is their ace, All-American level starter. Got TJ and blew out in a game against WashU last year and missed the rest of the season. How much he'll be able to give them this year will be huge, because he was like a top 10 pitcher in the country before he got hurt. And they have another kid named Luke Lamb, who could be the top 1-2 punch in the country if they're both healthy. Like, that's the best team in the Central region this year.
I'm going to see Rob this weekend. Actually, we're doing a Barnstormers event in Aurora, and their assistant's coming over, and he's going to bring Rob. They're going to do some catching stuff, so I'm interested in interacting.
He did great in the draft league. We saw him play in the draft league, so very excited to have him back for another D3 season. W&J is another team that that's a great example of a program that has been so good over the last half decade. And last year, they just completely steamrolled their conference, which is the only games that they played. And we had no idea. And I'm sure they were really good, but they weren't tested. And then once they got to the regional, it was like, oh my God, these are the best teams we've faced all year. So, having them be able to play a more balanced schedule during the year to get them ready, because I know that they are very good, but to have them actually get to play some of those other teams will, I think, be good.
Will you guys be out at all watching games?
We are hoping this, because obviously
with the MLB lockout, you never know. You might have some free time.
The lockout could certainly influence that. But I think, last year, obviously the attendance policies for some of these places, that was still, the season was starting before vaccination. Like this year,
you had to be a student in a lot of places to get in.
But this year we are right. This year we are going to be making a much stronger effort to be getting out to some games. Certainly, Hopkins is a place where we're excited to go. But yeah, we're going to try to, because we miss going to baseball games, and especially if
even the NCAA championships, it was wild. You had to upload your Vax card. There's just so many hoops that you had to jump through to get into the NCAA championships.
I got new tires on my 2003 Hyundai Elantra. Right, just got the oil checked. I'm ready to put some miles on that bad boy.
Hey, how was the bike ride? How was the bike ride?
It was great. For people listening,
it's unbelievable.
I lost a bet. I said that if the White Sox hired Tony La Russa, I would walk to Chicago from my apartment in New York. They hired him, and instead I biked it. I did about 1,200 miles from my apartment to Chicago. It was great, man. It was 85 miles a day out on the open road, like not a worry in the world except for rain and flat
tires. Did you have to go through the turnpike to get there?
No. You cannot ride on any road.
I was thinking about you because I didn't know the route, and I was like, there's no way he's going through the turnpike to try to get there.
So there was the hairiest moment of the entire trip was leaving Williamsport, Pennsylvania. Heading, I'm sure you've seen that part of the world.
I've driven that. It's
the road from Williamsport to Lock Haven, Pennsylvania, when you're going west down to State College. That was hairy. Because there's no good way to get out of Williamsport because it's kind of tucked into the mountains. And so I had to do about 3 miles on a pretty legitimate highway. That was freaky. And then leaving Pittsburgh, going up to Youngstown was also a bit hairy. Other than that, though, man, it was great. We raised $30,000 for a youth baseball organization in the south side of Chicago. So, I'm thinking about doing something this upcoming year. Got to talk to Jordan about it, see if we have another idea in the chamber. But it was definitely a lot of fun.
What else are you guys looking forward to before I let you guys go? I know you're busy, but what else are you looking forward to?
Yeah, man, I don't know. Again, like it's just like I just miss having the full slate and seeing what these games are going to be. I'm maybe we'll be able to make it down to Florida for some games this year in March. I'm excited for those games to be back on the schedule, but just college baseball in general. I mean, obviously D3 is our main focus, but I'm so excited for D1 to be back, and especially at where the negotiations will probably feel and be in mid-February.
I hope we're wrong. I hope I'm wrong.
But if that's still going, I think it'll be a welcome reprieve. And I got to also say, extremely excited for softball. So shout out to the D1 softball.
They've done a great job. I'm excited. It's great to see the growth of softball and what they've been able to do.
It's the best.
Awesome.
Very excited about it.
A couple other things. I want to shout out York. 2 guys on First Team All-American, Jack Berry and Austin Denlinger. That is going to be a lot of home runs for those two. Yes. And then the last thing, Jordan, before we go, we can officially confirm that Division III legend Brett Williams, who finished just 8 home runs behind the all-time lead, is officially not playing this last year. He has 1 year of eligibility left. Technically, he's not using it. The career is over. Just a tip of the cap to an all-time Division III legend.
And shouts out to the NEAC in general, who gave us Toby Welk, who is now killing it in the Orioles system, and gave us Brett Williams. I know it's not a conference we pay that much attention to during the season, but to give us those legendary careers, absolute hat tip to the career of Brett Williams.
Third all time home runs in D3?
Third all time D3 homers, 63.
And with these bats?
These bats. And with pitchers throwing probably harder than they did in the 70s.
Hey, where are you going to cover after West Coast? You're going to do your West Coast preview, and then who are you going to next?
We usually do West and then South, so we like to do it based upon how soon games get started.
Yes.
So Jordan, you want to record West today? You ready to do that? We can do it
Yeah,
today?
we can. We're probably going to do
Right.
West this week, and then definitely South, and then I would hope and guess that we will be putting out the previews faster than the last few years, because we have less spring training to cover probably. But we'll see.
And that's at
The
D3
regions-
Baseball Pod. So
Yep.
for anybody that wants to dive in on all of this D3 action, it's at D3 Baseball Pod.
Yep.
Jordan and Jake, so much. Thank you so much for jumping on with me. This is always great for me. I love it. I love our friendship.
Absolutely, man. Our pleasure. Thanks for the invite. Excited for the D3 season. February 4th, the action gets going. Don't wait for D1. D3 starting February 4th.
NAI is already going.
NAI
JUCO's
is already
going
going.
this weekend. Get out there and watch some college baseball.